This is IB Times TV. It's Friday, August 19th. I'm Kay Cameron Lau. A newly released report concocted by scientists from NASA and Penn State has been making waves for one of its main contentions, which basically states that if a galactic force of technologically advanced space aliens decide to show up and end us, it will likely be because we humans, as excessive, wasteful, inconsiderate, and pollution-loving as we come across, deserve it. In other words, observant aliens would perceive our wayward ways as such a threat that they would have to kill us all to keep us from spreading our evil across the Milky Way. The report, entitled "Would Contact with Extraterrestrials Benefit or Harm Humanity? A Scenario Analysis," specifically warns that extraterrestrial intelligence, or ETI, quote, could attack and kill us, enslave us, or potentially eat us. ETI could attack us out of selfishness or out of a more altruistic desire to protect the galaxy from us. We might be a threat to the galaxy just as we are a threat to our home planet. It goes on to discuss how rapid technological advancement on Earth has led to an abrupt change in the atmosphere due to greenhouse gas emissions, and how those changes modify the spectral signature of the planet. They speculate that this shift in spectral signature could ultimately put us on the radar, or more appropriately, in their crosshairs, and turn this all into a really bad day. Well, according to the authors, it's either that, or it'll be because they might need to clear some space to make way for a hyperspace bypass, which would involve just blowing up the planet. Kay Cameron Lau, IB Times.
Just finishing up this, the Vatican now, a 5-day conference on aliens. Father Jonathan Morris, Fox News contributor, back with us. Father, good morning to you.
What a great movie that was.
It was a wonderful movie. Drew Barrymore, and off she went. Did the Vatican find alien life?
You know what? As sensationalistic as that question sounds, it's really not that far off from what we've seen in the news over these last days. The pictures of what might have been Pope Benedict standing on the roof of the Sistine Chapel looking for UFOs, that's the type of images that this news conjures up. What is exceptional is that the Vatican was taking very seriously what science might tell us about the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligent life forms. That's what the conference was about. I can't tell you that the Vatican found any alien life. I don't think that's what they were looking for, but they were taking very seriously the issue.
You know the history, just like we do. I mean, they've come a long way since Galileo 400 or 500 years ago. Well, what do you think it says about the church, and it's actually looking at this issue?
Well, a great question, Bill. What it says is that although there have been some inglorious moments of relationship of faith and science, the Vatican, and not just Catholics, Christians in general, they brought 30 of the best scientists, the astrobiologists, of the cosmologists, of the astronomers, to tell the philosophers and the theologians what they already know about the possibility of something that could happen. Now, what they're trying to do is get out of the story, get out ahead and say, what if we were to find life outside of this planet? What does that tell us about the doctrine of original sin, of Adam and Eve? And their point here is that we have to allow science to lead us in what is their field, without going into it with ideology saying we know that God doesn't exist.
I think that's a great point. Now, you as a Roman Catholic priest, you're open to science, is what you're saying, correct?
Without a doubt, not only open, Bill, but we have to respect science in its own field.
How would it change the church's teaching then? Well, if you consider for a moment, if you determine that there is extraterrestrial life there.
Well, one thing would be fascinating would be not only extraterrestrial life, but if it were extraterrestrial intelligent life forms. That would definitely make us go back and say, maybe our understanding of perennial truths needs to be updated. Now, the way we look at it is this. It's not about whether or not God was the creator, but rather how he created. It's not a question of whether original sin, this Adam and Eve story, is true or not, but our understanding of how that played out. So it's growing in our understanding of perennial truths.
I think that's an interesting explanation there. And I think also if it were determined, Father, that would be an earthquake, would it not?
It would be, and especially if the Vatican were involved in accepting that. I think we have to make sure that science is not in some way ideologically driven. We have to make sure that faith and religion is not ideologically driven. Faith and reason, they go together.
Oh, you represent the church very well in this segment here. Now, I know they've had the conference when they determine something. If they do, come on back, okay? Father Jonathan Moore.
If I see anything, I'll tell you.
This is IB Times TV. It's Wednesday, August 24th. K. Cameron Lau. Based on the analysis of recent data gathered by NASA's Mars Phoenix lander, scientists are starting to believe that the Martian soil is much less inhospitable than previously thought and may even be suitable for life. Traditional beliefs regarding the nature of the red planet's surface mainly centered on the idea that its soil was in abundance of oxidizing compounds, which would make it difficult for the building blocks of life in the form of complex molecules and organic chemicals to exist. But as Richard Quinn of NASA's Ames Research Center and the SETI Institute in Mountain View, California explained, while there may be small amounts of oxidants in the soil, the bulk of the material is actually quite harmless and even similar to moderate soils found on Earth. The oxidation process involves the loss of at least one electron when two or more substances interact. Those substances may or may not involve oxygen, and the end result of the process is not always undesirable, especially in association with the human diet. The most familiar forms of negative oxidation are the rusting of metals and rotting of fresh fruit. The $420 million Phoenix lander, which arrived near the Martian North Pole in late May of 2008, employed its Wet Chemistry Laboratory, or WCL, to perform a range of observations, tests, and soil measurements. A look at results involving the soil's acidity, or pH level, left Quinn and his colleagues quite surprised to find pH levels much lower than what was expected. While the results do not prove the existence of life, they do show that based on the composite of all the material in the soil and the measure of overall reactivity of that soil in solution, what you get is comparable to what is found here in Earth soils, which makes for an environment far from extreme in that regard. K. Cameron Lau, IB Times TV.